So to begin, I think this is the last official full demonstration that I'll be showing, and it starts like all the others. This is probably the most challenging because you're not going to have everything laid out for you. You got to do your best to draw your character from the side view and the front view, and that's going to give you your X and Y axis. I really don't know how to describe it, but you have to think about the free forms, right? So like there's things that are going to not work so conveniently just by getting the front and the side view. The nose, for instance, is one of those things, and the fists also I had to change later, and the shape of the arms. This whole technique is very intuitive, and you work as you go, but the tools and the materials allow for that. So you make adjustments on the fly, and really when I'm not laying it all out for you, this is the way that the technique would have to work. I equate it to kind of leaving the nest. I can only take you, or I should only take you so far before you have to fly on your own. And this is that project. Now, I did do this demo, and you could see it from beginning to end. And this will, excuse me, this will guide you some of the way, and you could see more or less what I'm doing. You could also see the adjustments that I made along the way, including the arms. But the truth is that by this point, if you're working on this project in my class, then you've done the other things. You've done Yoshi, you've possibly done the piranha plant, you've done the bomb, you've done all of these things. And I find that by now, or after the students have done all of those things, they have a pretty good understanding of the technique if they've been faithful to try to understand it. If you haven't even bothered to try to understand the process, then this video isn't going to do you any good, because yes, it is very complex. It does take a great deal of time, especially the way that we're doing it in class using paper for stuffing. I've said it before, and the truth is that using foam spray, expanding foam spray, makes this whole process a million times easier. I do intend to create some more of these, but I won't show the whole process. Maybe I'll just show bits and clips and then the painting. Here's part of that creation where you have to fill in the gaps. So yes, I have the X and Y axis, the side and the front, but I also have to figure out kind of the girth of it, like how wide is the head going to be? How wide is the nose going to be? And I have to make constant comparisons. I have to adjust on the fly, like right there, cutting out a little space for the mustache. And that's what this process really entails. And like this, quite honestly, you can do anything that you wish, anything that you can imagine. You can build it also to any size if you have the right resources. So I really do think it's a very useful technique that has attributes that other techniques don't. So for ceramics, for instance, it requires a lot of maintenance, and it requires massive ovens if you want to do large things. Obviously, working with metals requires smolting and melting that metal and casting. So this is truly the product of our generation, in the sense that we have all of this excess cardboard, and now you could use it in this way if you wanted to sculpt. I want you to notice, if you are going to attempt this, notice the positioning of the ears. Don't take things for granted. I position the ear way back, right? Because based on my image that I drew, it is back there. So that's just a placeholder. So I know where that ear is going to go. Mario is wearing a hat. I did consider creating the hat separately and then adding it, but ultimately I decided to just do it all together. Save myself a little bit of time, but it is harder, again, because you have to determine how wide it's going to be, and you have to get the right measurements when it comes to that. And for that, I'm really using the tensile strength of the poster board that I've cut into strips. And that's what I'm using to try to determine the width of many things, not just the hat. That also determines the width of the cheeks, right? The width of some places of the nose, the the width of the arms, so they don't end up looking like diamonds. Too many students just end up not using that tensile strength of the poster board, and they'll like squeeze it and make it flat. No, you got to keep it round, especially if you have a round object. I think that's one of the most common mistakes when using this technique. And I really just do that throughout. I'm not afraid to remove things in these projects because I know that I could always add them back. Here we're just finishing up what I just described. The head of this project is really the most difficult part. The rest are relatively simple forms, except for the hands. The hands are complex and they take quite a bit of time to get done. I already did the stuffing. There you can see it's stuffed. No sense in showing that on video. It would add an extra 10 minutes for no reason. And by now, like I said, you know what that process entails. As you can see, there's still no hair back there. Like I said, I'm not worried about that because I can go in and add it later. And in this project, I used a new tool to do the hair and things like that, which ended up being excellent. Now it's time to add your tape. Many students ask me if they can paint directly on top of the tape. The answer is no, because the tape has this plastic-like quality and paint doesn't adhere to it well. So you do have to paper mache. We don't paper mache for strength. We paper mache for a painting surface. And the paper mache is non-toxic. There are other ways to create your painting surface. In this project, I did use one of them, one of the other ways. But I still paper mache just because I use this paper clay, and I'm not sure because I haven't experimented, but I figured this paper clay would adhere better to the paper mache. I think it's got a similar molecular composition. Adding my legs, figuring out my body. This is the simple form is the body and the legs of this project. Pretty straightforward. Placing the head was challenging, especially since I didn't have a good 3D form of Mario, and the 3D forms that I did see, Mario doesn't have much of a neck. So I tried to keep it that way, but ultimately I did have to add a neck because I needed it to support the head. Much like, real life, we need our neck to support our head. Same process here, trying to figure out the feet situation. Now the feet are pretty splayed. I probably should have created a little bend so the foot could be flatter on the surface. Regardless, it still stood. If you do decide to do this project, I will provide for you these hands, which are just modified from the Yoshi project. I'll put it in the description for you. And I had a very specific vision with this Mario, and it was to create a lamp, and that I did. I've never done that before, but I figure if I'm going to continue these projects, I might as well make them more interesting for myself. You guys know what I'm doing here based on the Yoshi project. Like I said, if you haven't done Yoshi, don't go back and do Yoshi and then come back and attempt Mario, and everything will make a lot more sense. Again, getting your X and Y axis, trying to figure out how things should bend. This is if not the second most complicated part of this project. Now there is a difference between this and Yoshi, and the difference is that Mario has 5 fingers. So, I mean, logically, it's not really a big difference. You can still figure it out. Just keep that in mind. Allow me to correct myself. I said don't go back and do the Yoshi. No, do go back and do the Yoshi. This is exactly like the Yoshi. So there's no need for me to describe these things in detail. Creating the hands, creating the arms. They have a slightly different shape, but the process is the same. And Mario has 1 more finger. I still haven't figured out a better way to fill in the fingers. Perhaps using the air clay that I use later on would be a good way to do that. But the hot glue certainly does give them a great deal of strength and rigidity, so it does work. But there must be a better way. I'll find it eventually. Now that I think about it, I think that you could just use the expanding foam right between the fingers and carve them out. They won't have the same strength, but it'll work. Here I'm stuffing the legs, taping the legs. Gluing together the hands. I did leave that little circle area above to represent the wrist, as Mario wears gloves. I didn't have to do that. I could have just done that later with the air clay. Here I stuffed the hands and arms and taped them. They're going to be like this, and Mario will be holding a star in his left hand that will light up. This is the air clay I've mentioned. It's a little bit pricey, but it's totally worth it. About $10 for this little pack. And to finish this Mario project, I used 2 of these packs. It's great. It air dries. It dries hard. It's paintable, made in Japan. I use it to create the mustache already. That was the first thing I used to create this. I should have used it on the brim of the hat, but I didn't for whatever reason. I just flattened it with my fingers at first, and then I flattened it with a glass bottle I had on hand. I recommend flattening with the glass bottle so you get the most out of it. In my experience, you could just make it as thin as possible on the surface. You certainly don't want to leave out this air clay because it will dry pretty quickly. So whatever you're not using, make sure you seal. Make sure you seal it. It doesn't give a perfect surface with your hands, so I used a little bit of water in a brush to flatten it out a little bit further. It's really a great product. And it says non-toxic. I'll obviously keep it away from your mouth and eyes, but here's me just flattening it out using a bit of water in a brush. I did this everywhere that I could. You'll see that now. Except for the brim of the hat, which the surface remained rough there. It's important when you're using this product or anything like clay, you have to make sure it wraps around and connects with itself. Any air dry product, because that's going to give it more strength. If not, it might just flake and fall off. There you go, all over the face. Later I used it to create the ears and the hair. I already created the sideburns with this. So you can see that the sideburns and the eyebrows, the mustache. I created a little bit of, I left a little bit extra for the bottom lip. These are all the things that I kind of hold your hand and walk you through, most of them in the Yoshi project. But these are the things that you're just going to have to analyze and look at on your own. And this project and other projects, whatever it is that you decide to do independently. Now it's time to modify this to make it into a lamp. You can see I cut out these areas and I hollowed it out. The arm is going to go on there. I also hollowed out a space on the hand. This is where the wire is going to go for the lamp apparatus that I bought from IKEA. It wasn't very expensive, and it's an LED lamp. Just showing you how I hollowed out the arm and the spaces that I created for that wire. This is the product that I bought from IKEA, and that I'll be using to install the lamp apparatus on this Mario. These are the LED lights. That's the wire. Oh, this is a separate part I had to buy to be able to connect the lamp. Also got it at IKEA. And I do intend to do a couple of more projects using this method to turn the objects or the sculptures into functional works of art, to make them into lamps. There you see the star. The star is meant to be what houses the LED lights and ultimately lights up. It's important to realize that I didn't use the sticky part of the LEDs. I just stuffed them in the star. We're going to take this wire, feed it through the body, starting right here at the leg, coming out through the arm. And once I was done with that, I just put all that stuffing right back in there. As long as the wire is coated, I think it shouldn't be a fire hazard or anything like that. If that wire was damaged, I wouldn't do this, for fear of starting a fire. Yeah, in the beginning of the video, I explained that I'm not afraid to take things apart. You shouldn't be either, because you built it all. So you know what you have to do if you need to rebuild it. Sometimes students get fearful that, well, I'm going to ruin it. No, you're not, because you made the whole thing from scratch. You can certainly correct something like this. And right there, I'm just making sure I have enough space to fit that wire that's going to hold the LED lights. And I needed to make sure that piece would be able to be as straight as possible going up, so I could easily insert the LED lights right in there. So I did adjust it until I got what I needed. There you go. You see? Standing very straight. That's exactly what I needed it to do. And I did whatever I had to do to make that happen. It's time to start creating the star. Now, the star is not, it's a complex form. You have to treat every single piece of the star the 5 points, like their own form. However you end up doing that, but you just have to visualize it, right? Don't treat it like one thing. Don't treat it like a cube. Don't treat it like a sphere, because it's not one thing. It's a 5-pointed star, so each of those is like a cylinder, and then combined to that is like this roundish pentagon thing. So that's what you have to make sure you do to create the star. I thought about doing a separate video with just the star, just because. So you see, that's exactly what I did there. You see, every point has its own form, which is like kind of this cylindrical cone type of shape, and then the center is bulging out, right? So it's like this pentagon that's bulging out. You cannot think of it as just one shape. That's not going to work. It's all of these shapes combined, because it is this complex form. And I still did the X and Y axis thing. That's why I have 2 there. That's what I'm showing you. But I did cut out every point of the star to do the X and Y axis. And then once those were done, I just combined them in that center pentagon, right? I did a line straight from the points to the center, and that's how I combined them. And that's for the front and the back. Now I stuffed it, I paper mache'd it, and that allowed me to realize where I was going to put the opening for the LED lights. So I made sure that I created a good opening where the star could sit on that piece that holds the LED lights. And I paper mache'd it, and that paper mache is going to come off later. That's really what's going to make it hollow and create a shell that will be able to light up for the lamp. Here you can see the construction for Mario is mostly done. I have used that air clay on everything that I could. Shaping the neck admittedly took some work, so there's all these details that you have to consider. The buttons, right? There's the neck that I was talking about. You have the buttons, you have the little dots on the gloves, you have the square on the belly, you have the rim of the jeans that he's wearing, you have the bottom of the shoes. This allowed me to correct the mistake I discussed earlier. But this, for the most part, is Mario finished. I did try to add some subtle textures to the jeans or the overalls that he's wearing, and now it's time to start creating the outer layer of the star, because what we've done really is we've made an object that will allow us to make a mold. Obviously, what we've done is not going to light up, so I'm using this Cernit polymer clay, which is transparent. And the end result was actually pretty good. It wasn't as yellow as I would have wished, but using this polymer clay, you can apply it to both sides. And then you cut it out, and the paper mache is going to come off with it, and that's how you use it as a mold, right? And then you put it back together, and that's what I've done here. So the only thing that's left in there is the paper mache, and you can see that it's hollow. I still need to get some more Cernit. These are not transparent, and these are for the eyes. I used black and white because the eyes have a little dot, a little highlight of white. This is the type of clay you fire at home in your oven, about at 225 degrees. The instructions are there. And as soon as I did that, the project was done. I was really satisfied with this project. Also, you could sand and paint this clay if it's not the transparent type, but I was really happy with this project. It did take a long time. And painting is painting. I like to start with black because it keeps the shadows natural or in there somehow. Paint however you wish. And here it is. I hope you're able to do it. It's really a great project. And especially the lamp part of it is wonderful. My daughter loved it. Like always, guys, thank you so much. I hope this video helps if you do want to do Mario. And I will see you in class.